I need to focus. This day has been.
Go ahead.
Okay, welcome to the Chaska Human Rights Commission on June 28th, 2018. Can you call the roll, Nate?
Sure. Just go around in order. Lisa White.
Here.
Kaylee Haga.
Here.
Robert Kim is absent tonight. Jen Welbert.
Here.
Judy Dunbar.
Here.
Donzel Leggett.
Here.
Judy Colhap.
Here.
And Sarah Carlson.
Present.
All right.
Everybody has an agenda. If you've had a chance to look it over, if there's any changes that you need to add or change, then this would be a good time to say it. I do know,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. I just wanted to mention that we have Chief Scott Knight as a presenter, as a guest presentation tonight on the agenda. Fortunately, he's had something come up that was unforeseen, unable to be here to present. He wants to talk about the pilot program for the body-worn cameras that the police department recently started. So he does plan to come in July and give the presentation at that time.
okay. If that's the only change that anyone has, then is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. I seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
And it passes. Okay, the agenda is adopted, and we're gonna move on to the guest presentation. Tonight we have Brenda Lano and Allison Strike here from Carver County CDA. They're gonna come and teach us some things about affordable housing and homelessness in the area. Thanks for coming.
Great. Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you so much for having us.
Good evening.
So I am going to talk a little bit about the CDA, who we are and what we do, and then get more specific. And my understanding is you'd like to hear some more about homelessness in Carver County. And then we do have some handouts as well that we will leave with you. So the mission of Carver County CDA is to provide affordable housing opportunities and foster economic and community development in Carver County. So the CDA owns and manages 612 rental units. 183 of those are senior units, 55 and older. 234 are multifamily units or general occupancy. And then we have 195 subsidized units. And subsidized units are where the household pays 30% of adjusted monthly income towards rent, and then the rest is subsidized. All of our units are affordable in that they either have an income limit or a rent limit on the property. And then of those units, we have 31 project-based voucher units scattered throughout the county. And we do have one of those at each of our multifamily or our senior buildings. And so a project-based voucher is when a housing choice voucher is attached to a unit. The household pays 30% of their adjusted monthly income towards rent. The rest is subsidized. And then after 12 months, that household can take a voucher and move anywhere in the U.S. And we keep a project-based voucher attached to the unit for the next household. And of those 31 units, 17 of those units are designated for homeless families within the county. And I'll talk a little bit more about a specific partnership we have with the school districts as it relates to those units. So we have a memorandum of understanding signed with District 112, which is Eastern Carver County Schools, and District 110, which is Waconia. We currently have 3 units in Chaska and 2 units in Waconia that are project-based voucher units, and they are specifically designated for homeless families from within the school districts. So when we have an opening in that unit, we reach out to the school and they make a referral for a family that we then would house in one of those units. And we're currently in the process of expanding that program into central schools and Watertown Mayor, so that will have coverage overall, and expanding it within Eastern Carver County School as well. And then we have 3 of those homeless units specifically are designated for veterans, and that's in Chaska, so homeless veterans. And then we have 5 what's called Section 811 units in Chaska as well, and those are, again, project-based subsidy. And that particular program is for low-income households with disabilities between the ages of 18 and 61. We have a Carver County Land Trust program, and I'll let Brenda briefly talk about
Carver
that.
County Land Trust is a program that was actually started by the City of Chaska as the City of Chaska Land Trust back in 2003. When the market suffered, the city had asked if we would take that over because we were their educational partner. And so we felt that it fell within our mission to promote affordable housing. So the model is actually affordable home ownership, and it's available to anyone that is 80% AMI or below and who can qualify for a mortgage. And they sign a ground lease, so they can buy the home for much less than what it would be on the open market. The ground lease allows them all the rights of traditional home ownership. It has the caveat that it is a shared equity model, and when they go to sell, that they're going to pass on that opportunity to another family. There's currently 28 homes in our land trust. 20 are in Chaska, 1 in Victoria, and 7 in Waconia. And we will be adding 5 more homes in Waconia this year.
The CDA also administers 3 different, what we refer to as special programs. So they're all tenant-based rental assistance, so it's a voucher that follows a client, and they target specific populations. So our Bridges program is funded through Minnesota Housing, and that provides rental assistance for households that have a serious mental illness. And our partner service provider for that program is First Street Center, which is Carver County Adult Mental Health. Bridges RTC is the same as Bridges with the additional criteria that somebody is exiting a regional treatment center to get on that program. Our COC Permanent Supportive Housing Program is a federally funded program, and that targets households with a serious and persistent mental illness, and First Street Center is also our service provider for that program. And then Housing Trust Fund is through Minnesota Housing, and that's designated to address homelessness, and it's for households with a disability. Our Community Growth Partnership Initiative, so the CDA used to have business loan funds. And in 2016, we repurposed that program into an initiative that has grant funds available that the cities can access. So they can request in any given year up to $60,000 for a redevelopment grant or a community development grant, or $7,500 for a planning grant. And Nate, I'm really sorry, but off the top of my head, I do not know if Chaska you have not requested any of that funding yet, or have you? I don't think so.
We have.
So we're only in our 3rd year of that program. And then we are also a HUD certified housing counseling agency, and I'll let Brenda talk about that.
So as a HUD housing counseling agency, we're available for any resident in Carver County that needs assistance to come in. The counselors, I'm proud to say that we had the very first certified counselor in the state of Minnesota. By 2020, all HUD counseling agencies must have certified counselors. The counselors can work with someone who is facing foreclosure on trying to stop the foreclosure, or how to successfully maneuver that process and move on and out of the home. They can also do post-purchase education, make referrals for rehab work, things like that. We have a list of contractors that have been referred to our agency by clients that have been happy, so we have those referrals available. They also do rental counseling, so somebody can come in and talk to them about what it means to be a good renter and how do you successfully rent in this tight rental market. And we also serve as a homeless assistance counseling. So we'll work with anyone that walks through our doors that is homeless to try to help them navigate that homeless system. One of the things that we did recently, it was about a year ago, when we went to HUD, because with foreclosure counseling, we knew we were able to pull a credit report for a homeowner to see where they're at and help them get a budget that worked for that household. Well, if HUD would allow us to pull a credit report for a person that was housed, we wondered if they wouldn't allow us to pull a rental report for someone looking at renting, or a homeless person, to see what the barriers are on their background. And HUD approved it and informed us that we were the very first agency to ever make that request. And they're using that as a model now and trying to get other agencies to do the same thing.
The CDA contracts with the Metropolitan Consortium of Community Developers, MCCD, for the Open to Business program. So the Open to Business program provides one-on-one business consulting for either somebody who has a business in Carver County or lives in Carver County and would like to have a business. It doesn't have to be in the county if they live here. And that's free of charge, again, to either a county resident or somebody who wants to have a business here. We have somebody in our office once a week for that program. And in addition to those free consulting services, they can also provide some financing as well. Just for the sake of time, maybe quick talk about the rehab program, and then we'll go into the homelessness piece.
One of the newest programs that we just brought back to the agency is the Minnesota Housing Rehab and Emergency Loan Program. Those programs are specifically designed to help very low-income homeowners. I know from the past, we've used those loans quite often in Chaska within the mobile home parks. So we know that those oftentimes are the people that struggle the most when they're below $20,000 annual income to make the much needed repairs. So we're really excited that we have this program back and we can help those people.
Okay, so now we'll move on to homelessness. So one of the things that the CDA does, and we're one of, well, the only one we know of in Minnesota that's a housing authority. We are what's called a coordinated entry access point. So the Department of Housing and Urban Development has implemented what they call a coordinated entry system, which is really meant to be like a no wrong door policy. And what it was meant to do is stop the shuffling around of people who are homeless. So they present at one agency, that agency says, I can't help you, go to this agency, that agency says the same thing, and the process continues on and on and on. So it's meant for people who are homeless to show up at one place, they have an intake completed, and that gets them on a priority list. And that priority list is the mechanism for referrals to programs. So all those special programs that I referenced that the CDA has, our bridges, our permanent supportive housing, our housing trust fund, all of our referrals come off of that coordinated entry access list. So as of the end of May, Carver County had 81 households on our priority list alone. We are part of a bigger, what's called continuum of care that encompasses Carver, Scott, Dakota, Anoka, and Washington, and on all 5 counties, there is 1,308. So Carver County alone has 81. The caveat to that, I will say, is coordinated entry means you have to be the HUD definition of homeless, which is literally homeless, sleeping in a car in a place not meant for human habitation, or in a shelter, or fleeing domestic violence, or long-term homeless under Minnesota's definition, which is either 1 year continuous or 4 times in 3 years, right? Is it 3? No, 4 times in 3 years. So what we see a lot in our agency is that a lot of times people are not homeless enough to get on coordinated entry, because in Carver County, homelessness looks more like couch hopping and doubled up versus what it looks like in bigger, counties like Hennepin and Ramsey. So that's part of why when we started our program, where we have all those project-based voucher units designated for homeless that we have scattered throughout the county, whenever the CDA has an option to choose the definition of homelessness, we always opt to choose the Minnesota definition. And most of the time when we are filling the units where we get to pick the definition, we keep a list in the office of people who come in but can't get on the priority list, and we start with those people to try and fill the units. And the reasoning for that with us is we would rather rehouse somebody quickly before they become long-term or chronic homeless, so that there's potentially less barriers to get them rehoused. So I also have, so in partnership with our school districts, the CDA just submitted a grant for a new program. It's called Homework Starts with Home. And part of that grant application, we had to summarize data used to identify the needs in the school district. So the Watertown Mayor School District, as of May, They had 8 homeless students from 3 different families. The Southwest Metro Intermediate District had 2 students that were considered homeless. Eastern Carver County Schools, which encompasses Chaska, had 25 families with 35 school-age children who were homeless. And Waconia Schools had 3 families with 5 students. And Central School District was fortunate enough this 2017 to 2018 school year to not have anybody, but they had 2 families the previous year. So a lot of grant opportunities right now are really focusing on prevention for families and youth. So the CDA has 2 grants pending right now, specific for prevention for families and youth, and the big one is this one that we're doing in partnership with all 4 school districts. And as I said, Eastern Carver County School has the greatest need, just based on their size and location. So I brought some handouts specific to, one is specific, really, it's meant to be like a coordinated entry, like if you're homeless, where do you go? Carver County CDA, the CAP agency does intakes, and then Launch Ministry, if you're familiar with them, they do intakes for youth. I have some brochures on the CDA, and then I also have Minnesota Housing Partnership does county profiles every year, so I have the 2017 county profile that has some great information in it. But specific, it sounds like you'd like to have information to hand out on homelessness. I think what we wanted was maybe questions from you. It would be helpful for us to compile and give you information that you feel is useful versus us just giving you something that maybe isn't easy for people to understand.
Well, thank you, first of all, for
Yes.
this presentation.
I just threw a lot of information.
It was, we're fast and furious. I think as far as the literature that we're looking for, we're hoping to hand some out at River City Days. We do not want to just double up on whatever you are planning to do. That wasn't our intention, but as the Human Rights Commission, I think it would be helpful to get information about what homelessness looks like in Carver County and in Chaska specifically, and then also what are things that the neighbors in the community can do to help support the programs that are in place, even just to know about them. So if they run into someone facing homelessness or foreclosure, they can maybe point them in the right direction. Just ways we can kind of support our neighbors.
Okay.
So Allison, I think somebody from the CDA will be at a booth
Correct.
at River City Days.
Correct. We'll have 2 people there.
Can I ask, could you talk a little bit more about the Homework Starts at Home program? Like, what's that grant for, and what kind of, who's that to?
Well, we're super excited about it because it's one of the first grants that's come through Minnesota Housing that's let us be a little bit more flexible. We're kind of used to being boxed in with grants, and they're giving us some flexibility. So what's also exciting about it is this program has 3 pools of money, and there's a philanthropic contribution from the Heading Home Collaborators Foundation for this program, which is great, and that's the one that gives us a ton of flexibility. So the CDA in particular, we requested 13 slots, if you will, or to help 13 households with rental assistance, so more long-term, where they would pay 30% of their income. They can rent from anybody willing to take a subsidy, and the rest is subsidized. Then there's also what's called a FHPAP component, which is the Family Homeless Prevention and Assistance Program. And so in that, we requested money to help fund a housing navigator, because one of the things the schools requested, and that we've even noticed in working with them, is there are times when families from the school district do not want to come and have an intake because they're concerned about the stigma that's attached with homelessness, or they don't identify as homeless because they're staying at, they're doubled up somewhere, and they don't, to them that's not homeless because they're not sleeping out in their car when it truly is. So a housing navigator would be able to go out to the schools, meet with the families there, and then really work on getting them connected to all the resources that a lot of people don't even know are available to them. And then we requested money for direct financial assistance for prevention, so to help prevent somebody from becoming evicted, or to help quickly rehouse somebody who had just lost their housing to be able to pay for maybe a first month's rent and a deposit. And then the philanthropic piece, we requested money for extracurricular activities, for participant advisors. So this grant, in particular, they want people with lived experience involved. And so I was fortunate enough to meet with some of the residents in our homeless units in partnership with the school district, who gave great feedback for this application and said, yes, we would love to participate in whatever kind of, group you form, to direct the grant going forward. We requested money for transportation, whether it's car repairs or gas cards. We requested for daycare costs. It kind of ran the full gamut of, let's think about somebody who's in a housing crisis and what do you really need to help stabilize somebody. So you had to, for this particular application, you had to have a school. You have to have schools participating. I think the great thing for us was that we had already developed this relationship with all 4 school districts before going into this application, so we really had a running start and kind of a great model to already had that in place. So we're excited.
When do you expect, when will they make those decisions?
So the Heading Home Collaborators Foundation is meeting on July 25th to make their recommendations. Minnesota Housing is meeting on the 27th, and they will inform us on July 28th.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, so when you hear me screaming and running around, that's because we got funded.
Will you let us know?
Sure. I will make sure Sarah knows, and she will pass on.
You'll have a big banner at River City Days.
Yes.
I think it's also helpful if you wanted to talk a little bit about the public awareness efforts that the CDA has been doing with not only landlords, but with others here in Chaska. Just briefly.
Sure. So we've been trying really hard to do community outreach just in general about the CDA and who we are and what homelessness looks like. So we are taking the lead for community engagement for the Scott Carver Housing Coalition in Carver County. So last year I got in front of a good majority of the city councils. I'm not quite done making it through that list. I've gotten in front of some of the chambers and some other local groups, as well as we've been doing landlord engagement. So we have a landlord collaborative, and our selfish intention is to try and get landlords to accept rental assistance because the housing market is so tight right now. Vacancies are so low, rents are skyrocketing, and that just contributes to the problem of homelessness. But we've been offering trainings to landlords. So we have a training in July on tenant landlord law, and we've been doing it in conjunction with service providers so that they understand things from a landlord's perspective as well. The next training in October will be a presentation from Live Smoke Free. If you don't know, all of our CDA-owned properties are 100% smoke free. We did a fair housing training. We've done a training on hoarding. So our intention is to continue those trainings. And we're also trying to work on getting, I don't know if a coalition or what you want to call it, but a group of invested nonprofits, faith community, businesses, developers, the CDA, started in Carver County that focuses on the whole housing continuum. So for me, I always say housing is the foundation, but for housing to be truly stable, you've got to have healthcare, transportation, education, workforce. It's really trying to get all of those players at the table. So does that cover what you were?
Could you talk a little bit about what it's like, what can people do when they're facing eviction or they're facing homelessness? I have run into some people in the community that say, where do I go to help? And oftentimes I've mentioned the CDA, but I'm not sure what you do it on an emergency basis. How's that handled?
So right now for eviction prevention, that is the FHPAP program, and that's administered through the CAP agency and also Salvation Army. So we still would encourage anybody who's facing homelessness to come in and meet with one of our housing counselors, or if they're facing eviction, they can still come in. If we can't help them, we will make sure they are connected to the people who can. We do have another grant that I'm working on, so the POLAD Foundation, their focus rate for the next, for sure, 2 years is on homelessness. And so of 147 letter of interests, we got invited back out of the 52 to submit a full application for $300,000 over the next 2 years. And our request is, it's families and youth, and it's prevention. So we would be able, and the nice thing with POLAD is when they talk about prevention, they consider somebody who's doubled up precariously housed. So we can still help somebody who's doubled up because they are going to use the literal definition for homelessness. So that's the one time when HUD's definition benefits us. But we requested money to help prevent somebody from being evicted. And also, even for somebody, say somebody loses a job and they don't have an eviction notice, or they're having an experience in a medical crisis, we said we want to be able to help somebody maybe for 2 or 3 months to get them through the housing crisis and stabilize them. And then also like first month's rent and security deposit. So hopefully we'll get that, and because one of the downsides for us as a coordinated entry access point is people can come in, but we have much less financial resources to be able to provide direct assistance. So that's why we've been going after these grants, is so when people come in, we can help them. But again, if they come in, we can do an intake and we will make sure they get where they need to go if we cannot help them.
That's great.
And we do have a deposit fund, about $4,000 in there, that's designated for homeless families. So if a barrier to them becoming housed is a security deposit, we do have funds to help with that.
The county doesn't have any, like, one-night shelters or any place to house, do they?
So Families Moving Forward is the shelter provider for Carver and Scott County, and they work with families. So their shelter system is through the churches. So they have the day center at Shepherd of the Hill. And then at night, they bus the families to whichever church is hosting that week. Hope House, which is at Westwood Community Church, they have a youth shelter, and off the top of my head, I forget what their age range is, like maybe 13 to 18 or 14
to 19 now.
And there is a group of people right now that are working on trying to get a single adult shelter, because that's kind of the gap for us right now. But there's not like a building outside of Hope House. So for families, again, they get bused to the churches. So 2 shelters.
Is that church program for Carver County, or is it for all counties?
It's jointly between Scott and Carver.
Scott.
Yep. And I think they can have up to 4 households or a maximum of 16 people at any night. So we can certainly provide, we can give you more information for River City Days, like we can get you information on Hope House and Families Moving Forward, because people can reach out directly to them if they're experiencing a housing crisis.
Great.
Is there anything specifically that you'd like us to do for you? Is there anything that you think the Human Rights Commission in Chaska could do differentially to support the CDA's efforts?
I think a big one is awareness. I mean, from my selfish standpoint as a CDA employee, of what we do and who we serve, because I think we do a lot of things that support the full housing continuum. But if I take off my CDA hat and wear some of my other hats, even just around homelessness itself and what homelessness looks like, a lot of it is this perception people have of who homeless people are and what they look about. It's just, educating people on. If I have 2 minutes, and Sarah, you've heard this story from me so many times, if I can tell you my favorite story. So our 3 homeless veteran units in Chaska, one of them used to be a 3-bedroom. And so how we determine bedroom size with Metro HRA was making it a little bit more difficult for us to fill the unit. And I was sitting back in my office one day, and Brenda and one of my other employees came running back to me, and they're like, "You're never gonna believe who's up front. There's a disabled veteran homeless mom up front." And like, I got excited, right? Because I'm like, yes, we're gonna fill this unit, and I was so excited about helping somebody. And I walked up to the front, and I looked at this woman, and you could just tell she didn't know what she was gonna do, because she had been staying with her dad, and he was about to lose his housing. And I'm like, "I heard that you're a disabled homeless vet," and she looked at me like, And that's a good thing, like
she
you
was
must be crazy,
smiling
right?
when
Because
you
I
were
was
here.
smiling, I was so excited, and I'm like, well, it is, because I have a unit for you, and literally she broke down and started crying and had to sit down. But the best part of that story is we were able to rent to her. She rented from us for 2 years, and she's now a homeowner. She owns her own home.
Wow.
Yes.
Here in Chaska.
And she was fleeing domestic violence. I mean, if there ever was a success story, I mean, she's it. I think, Sarah, one thing we do not do a good enough job of is kind of touting those stories so that people do understand what does homelessness look like, and in particular in Carver County, where it is more couch hopping and doubled up, and it could be your neighbor or your coworker, and maybe not homeless, but somebody who's at risk of it, you know, somebody who's cost burdened and paying 50%. This MHP profile has good information on cost burdened households in Carver County, which, you know, so then people are choosing between paying their rent and, you know, getting food or filling their prescriptions or, you know, a number of things.
I think it's important to hear success stories like that too, so when people might be afraid to reach out to the CDA or something, and then to see what, you know, what outcomes can happen if you just, you know, work a little bit to figure out which program works right for you and stuff,
Right.
then.
You know, and the
it's
one thing
great
I
to
always
hear.
say is when people try to stereotype people who are homeless, you know what, mental health issues and drug or alcohol addiction, all of that stuff does not, socioeconomic status does not, that happens at every level of socioeconomic status. It does not just happen to homeless people. And I'll leave you with my last thought unless you have questions. So I'm also the co-chair for the Homes for All Coalition, and my co-chair, Senta Leff, has the greatest saying, and I love to quote her whenever I can. She says, homelessness is not a character flaw, it's a math problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
Thank you for everything you
coming.
do. Thank you.
And we will get you some I mean, there's some information in there, but we can get
Okay.
you copies of more and then some of the other information you asked
Thank you.
for.
I'll reach out this next week and
Okay.
we can talk about it more.
Okay.
Is your
sounds
phone number in the literature?
You know what?
Yes, it is on the
Oh, yeah,
CDA
the
flyer.
CDA's
Yeah,
phone
you
number
can
is
take
on
it.
our brochure, yes.
Yeah, yeah,
I can-
and, yeah. So, yeah, for the Human Rights Commission tent, just to be clear, you all can provide more of these handouts
Yes.
and brochures and
We can
things.
provide
The
more of
intent is
these.
for commission members to take a look at this. tonight.
Yes, yep, they can have these and we can give you more of anything you want.
Okay, great. Thanks to both of you, and I'm just gonna add, you know, I think from the city's perspective, we really appreciate the work that the CDA does do on, you know, providing affordable housing and coming up with mechanisms to achieve those goals, and, you know, Chaska has, you know, at least tried to embrace those ideas, and, you know, the desire to have a community that everyone can live in and be welcome to live in, and hopefully access, and so, you know, I'm not saying we're perfect at that as a community, and there's always progress to be made, but we appreciate the work that the CDA does towards that. You know, the other thing I'm gonna say is, you know, in my role sitting up here and being involved in these other, you know, in other ways, and the topic of housing and homelessness, a lot of times, you know, I think Allison was exactly right that there's perceptions out there, and there's maybe misunderstandings about what homelessness looks like. There's a lot of fear that then comes around that because of the lack of understanding. And that just makes it hard for decision makers, you know, to be able to make decisions about increasing you know, housing that could be accessible to folks, whether it's homeless housing or whether it's, you know, affordable housing or whatever, you know, the label on it is or the mechanism that's making that work. But I think the more that we can do to develop the conversation in the community and help people understand what it is that we're talking about, and that these are more often than not folks who are working hard and trying, you know, to make a valuable contribution to the community. That starts to be able to grease the wheels to make things happen a little bit more. So I'm just going to throw that out and add that to the conversation tonight. So thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
before we move on, do you just, since we have a guest here, do you just want to just introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Dale Bryan. I teach at Eagle Ridge Academy, and I heard of the Human Rights Commission. I live in Chaska. That's probably going to change soon, but I still live
Can
in
you come to the
Chaska.
podium? I can't get your audio, sir.
Hi, Dan O'Brien. I work at Eagle Ridge Academy. I'm here as a learner. I want to see what the Human Rights Commission is about. At our school, we have a diversity that's changed over the last couple of years. So I'm here, like, what's the Human Rights Commission about? What kinds of things can I learn? Because I want to be a liaison between new groups of people at our school and old groups of people at our school. And so I'm here learning so that I can help us work together at our school. Right? So I hope you'll allow me to come by and listen in, even if I'm not living in Carver County in a month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming.
And I hope Donzel gets elected.
Moving on. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the May 24th meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we will approve the minutes from the May 24th meeting. And we will move on to the treasurer's report.
All right, so at the May meeting, I reported that the amount remaining for this year was $1,947. Since then, 4 members attended the Human Rights Commission conference. I think that was earlier this week, is that right? So registration for that was $25 per person. 4 members, that's $100. And there's also a $50 payment that we will be making for the River City Days booth. I don't think the invoice has come in yet, so that hasn't been paid,
No, they'll
but
be
that is an
sending
amount
it.
that we need to account for. Yep. So $150 total over this month, either paid or dedicated, which would leave us $1,797 remaining for the year.
Okay. Next, we're gonna move on to old business, starting with River City Days. And Lisa and Judy have been busily working between meetings to get some stuff ready to talk about tonight, so do either of you.
Well, I came up with 4 different things, little giveaways if we want to do that. Yeah, these little round, I should have brought pictures.
Yeah,
Little round
okay.
fans. Oh yeah, like Judy has
Here's
there.
one.
That's right.
Oh, wow.
Here's an example of it.
That's cool.
Folds up in your purse, and I got this from another event, but I thought it was great, and I carried it all through Europe with me, and and then it quickly folds back up and goes right back in its little holster, and you can carry it in your pocket. Plus, it's likely to be a hot day, so people can use it
Wow.
that day.
And we can get like the Human Rights Commission logo on there instead of
On
the flag.
Yeah.
That's cool.
One, I think it's like, is there a higher resolution
Logo?
logo, like vector, she was saying?
Good
Logo
question.
right on there.
I don't know. I will have to look. So is that what they require?
She was asking for that for the banner specifically,
Okay.
but I think it would come out better on some of the little giveaway things if we want to use that
Okay.
too. She'd prefer that.
I will take a look. I'm less than confident that we have that. So if we don't, I don't know. Do we need to try and get one prepared in order to do this, or can we use what we have? Do you know the answer to that?
For the banner quote I got, she has to have higher resolution.
Okay.
She has to have. I think she can kind of make do with the JPEG for the others
Okay.
giveaway stuff.
Okay. All right, we'll see what we can do.
The larger the logo, the higher quality it needs to
It's gonna be
be.
called, so
Yeah.
if you wanna just search for UPS,
Okay.
let you know if you have anything at all.
Okay.
Like easy.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So I thought if we could just say yay or nay, there's fans, we could do that, 250 for $325. It's a fair amount of money. She can have tattoos made of our logo, which are really cute, I think, for,
Temporary, to be clear.
yes, temporary tattoos. We can get 200 for $66. The wristbands, the silicone wristbands, we can get 250 of those for $264. Or pens with the Chaska Human Rights for, let's see, we can get, I think it was 300 for $112. So, you wanna,
And
Yes.
Commissioner White, is there a timeline by which these items need to
the
be ordered?
sooner I can call her, if I can call her tomorrow, if we can decide, then there'll be no problem having them ready for River City Days.
There's also a sale that goes through the end of the month on the fans, so they're only $1 something.
The fans and the pens are on sale right now, so
Okay.
if I can call her tomorrow, if we can decide tonight, yes, yeah, we want the fans, or no, that's too much money.
Is there a color scheme that we need to decide on, or is it all just white?
We talked about like a navy and gold, because that's what the Human Rights Council
The
uses,
Human Rights Campaign.
Campaign uses.
And so people may associate that with human rights already. We don't know if we'd use the exact same navy and gold that they use, but we'd like to at least give a nod to them because we think that we align with their values, and so maybe we would think that's more of the official human rights color.
I'm gonna push back on that a little bit, actually, if that's okay, because I think that that's a very targeted audience, the Human Rights Campaign. And I think it might be better if we had a color that's not associated with another branded organization. That's just my,
Is there a color that Chaska,
Those are also
is it
cheap.
green or? what?
Yep. So our logo is primarily green and yellow.
Yeah.
I think there
and
might
those
be
are
a little
Packer
bit of blue in there
colors,
too, but
so.
right on. So.
I don't know if I can vote on
Regardless of what the Packers choose to do, green and yellow are the colors that the city uses primarily in its logo.
Like that makes more
I think we
sense to
should
me, that
probably
we
go with
brand
that
with the city
too.
colors.
There is one thing on the fan, she did say solid green, the stock is very low, the inventory is, I don't know. Unless, the fans are very expensive.
I actually like the fans of those options.
I think the fans are practical,
Yeah.
especially at
I
River
think
City
they would
Days.
get more.
Yeah. And something that everybody doesn't have, sorry.
Right.
And they're
Sarah?
$1 each? $1 each,
A little bit more.
fans?
They're $1.10 each with a setup charge of $50.
I think Commissioner Carlson has something to say.
Speak up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nate, do we have any limits based on, do we have to do some sort of open bidding? Or is our dollar amount that we would expend so little that we don't have to go through a bidding process?
Yeah, right now the open bidding limits are at $100,000.
So we have,
So we're
we can go with any vendor.
That's a lot of fans.
we would have to
Yeah.
use our budget for I think about a decade to get there.
Excellent.
So, yeah,
Okay.
so we're okay. Yep.
Commissioner White, I really appreciate all your efforts in trying to find catchy things for River City Days. My experience being at a booth selling pop and water, if you want to see me after the meeting, I'll tell you all about it, is that many times things that are handed out in the nonprofit area of the park get left behind. And many things like bracelets, and I'm not so sure I always see pens, but I know that if I go to my pop and water booth box from last year, I will see any number of pens that were left on our table that were picked up at somebody else's table and then just kind of abandoned. So I share that with the group because I don't know if pens is the best thing to do. Conversely, a really nice fan, that'd be a really nice thing, but that seems to be quite expensive for the item to be given away. Just my humble opinion.
I wanted just to add something to that. When I met with Judy and Lisa, we were talking about some of the quantities seem high for their minimum amount. However, we have Martin Luther King breakfast coming up, maybe hometown holidays, different events that we're involved in, that we can carry some of these things over that we didn't maybe give away before, but we could at least bring them along for that, so we could use them at other events. And my other thing I'd like to talk about is pens. I love when I find a good pen somewhere, so even if people take a pen, but then they leave it at the grocery store or a restaurant or something, someone else will find the Human Rights Commission pen, and I always read my pens, to see what they're advertising. It would help spread the word, and maybe we do want people to drop them somewhere so someone else can pick them up. So it's just something else to think about.
Sure. I think it's great research, Lisa. I just want to commend you again, like Commissioner Carlson did for the research and the work on it. I haven't been to the prior River City Days, but I think just a few of these things, just to bring some color to the booth and bring some excitement to the booth.
I thought the 4 things would give us options to say, yeah, this, but maybe not that.
So I mean, I like the ideas. I mean, we can certainly discuss which ones make the most sense. I think the fans are pretty good items because it usually is a hot day. Last year was very hot. Yeah. It's 2.5 days. So the chances are there's probably going to be at least 250 people that will stop by from my experience last year. If we have people at the booth and if the booth is attractive and it looks fun. And these types of things I think will bring some color and make it look fun. And
I think they're a little expensive, but I think that's something people hang on to and bring out.
Yeah, we'll be flipping it around the whole carnival.
So is
Yeah,
there,
the whole weekend.
is there like 1 or 2 things?
I don't want to make it more complicated, but I'm listening to Commissioner Carlson's concerns about items that are just tossed aside. Just want to offer, I have seen giveaways before that are, seeds embedded in bracelets or just seed packets, I think that sort of thing. Something that might be a little bit less harmful if someone were to toss it aside, and perhaps maybe it even result in a flower in the ground, I don't know. But just, that's another idea that's not offered. And these options, I don't want to complicate things, I think these are great as well, but maybe that would be a way to address that too. So, just pulling them up on Google, I see you could purchase 250 of them for $250, just under, so.
What are they again, Nate?
They're bracelets that they're made out of a paper that allows seeds to be embedded in them.
Okay.
So the kids can just plant them in a pot and watch them grow.
It's an interesting idea too.
So I've seen those before. I think we got some at the Carver County Fair from a booth last year. The kids enjoyed watching them grow. But
Yeah.
That's great.
another thing to offer up, I suppose.
What was the cost on the fans for the minimum order?
$325. My guess is they would probably last into next year too, though, the amount we get.
I also need to look at what our treasurer's report said. We're almost to July and we have $1,797. And I know there are some things that we'll be working on coming up, but I don't think there's $1,700 worth. So I think if it is a good product, whether it's $250 or $350, that's still not eating our entire budget. So if we agree on the product, I think we're still within a reasonable cost that we're looking at. And if people think that we need to have more than one item available, looking at one that's a little more expensive and one that's less expensive, you know, might be the way to go.
Madam Chair, people might purposely come to our booth for a fan.
If they
They
see
might
someone
see
else
in the-
cooling
in the
off.
park.
It's a good point.
I think so, I agree with Barb.
So should we vote on which items we think are good? Do we want to look into the seed thing more? If we make a decision tonight, we can get in on the sale items. If we wait till later, we won't get the sale prices, right?
Did Commissioner White have a recommendation, or were you just prepared to present options, or?
Those are the 4 options I came up with. I mean, I can tell you my personal opinion.
I'd like to hear it.
I
You're the expert.
like the fans, and I like the tattoos. I think that for what you get, I think they're cheaper and they're fun and they're easy, and it can be our logo. I like the pens too. I end up taking pens from wherever I go and finding out where they are. The wristbands, I don't know. I think a lot of people do the wristbands. That's my personal opinion.
And if we did those 3, what would be the total again? The 3 you recommended?
The 4, 5, about 600. Wait, no.
It'd be about 550.
Yeah,
550.
no. Just the fans, the tattoos, and the
And the pens.
pens would be 4. It'd be about 500.
Yeah.
Let's do the wristband.
We also will incur some literature costs for River City Days too, just to keep in mind.
And I also looked into getting a new banner,
Okay.
because we talked about the other one being kind of ragged. A 2x6 banner on standard 13-ounce vinyl with grommets in the 4 corners would be $30 plus an $8 setup fee, but that is what we have to have the higher resolution logo for. If we want the logo in it, otherwise it could just say Chaska Human Rights Commission, just the words.
$30?
$38.
$38.
I think that's a deal.
Yeah, that's what
I've
I'm
never
trying
heard
to
of
figure out,
that.
where are you getting that deal?
Connection. So the banner then, is that, should we go ahead and do that?
So now, just, the banner is gonna be contingent on us having the correct logo file. Is that, am I understanding
Or we
that?
just don't put the logo on it and it just says Chaska Human Rights Commission?
Ah, okay.
I think if we can approve the funds for the banner tonight, and then when we find out about the logo, we can talk about it through email and say, okay, we can't use the logo, can we just do it this way? But at least the money's
Right,
approved,
yes.
Okay.
so
So do we need to vote for that, or can we just say, let's go on the banner? Funding's approved, it's only $38, so. Nate?
I guess I would leave it to you if you feel like you really need to, have a vote. It sounds like there's consensus, so I think we're probably okay to proceed.
I think everyone was impressed with the price of the banner. Is there any opposition? Then we're not gonna vote.
Okay.
Okay, so now let's go back to the giveaways. Does anyone have any other personal preferences that they wanna?
I would do the fans and the tattoos. I think the kids would get a kick out of the tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
For them.
We also have a couple of rolls of stickers in the basement from, with the Human Rights Commission logo on a roll of stickers, and I think a stop sign that talks about stop bullying or something that we can also put out for people who
Maybe-
don't want to even have the temporary tattoos. They can just have a sticker instead.
If we did the fans, tattoos, and pens, yeah, it would be $503. And that would last us for this, maybe the breakfast, and then maybe next year also.
Could we maybe just go around and each person see what they think, and so we can move along?
Sure.
Well, how about if we just make a motion?
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the funding for giveaways for River City Days that would include fans, tattoos, and pens.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Good job, Lisa.
Great job, Lisa.
Thank you.
Picked
Thank
wonderful
you.
items.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll wait to hear about if we can get a logo for the banner.
Yeah, I'll look into that tomorrow.
If you can let me know, just so I can let her know.
Sure, and why don't you send me the links to make those orders, and I'll place those orders, it'll just be easier for me.
And on the fan, will be for his logo.
Right?
Say it again?
Madam Chairman, on the fan, are we going to have a logo print on the fan?
Yeah,
Is that the
before
intent?
we move on, we also need to decide about the colors, since we
Oh.
had started a discussion about that. We can't order them without knowing, so.
Well, we should probably stick with, the city colors.
The green and gold, despite the Packer affiliation.
Yeah, that's
I need to
perfect.
publicly state my non-Packer. But if there's low numbers on the green fans, I think it'd be okay to, if they have yellow, and do a green.
Do green writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if we stick within that color scheme, then whatever they think works easiest, then we should go with.
Sorry, I just had another question. We have a tent, right? For River City
Yes.
Days? That's all set?
And tables?
Yes, those will be set up.
And then do we want to include like a little stand-up thing about information about
Oh yeah, did you want to
the
talk about?
Martin Luther King breakfast?
Lisa was gonna
Just
make
like a
that one.
little info sheet people can look at on our table.
Mhm.
I can make one up for the table.
I'd say yes. I think that'd be great.
Then we thought we would, should I go? Are you ready? Do something on homelessness. So what we talked about doing is kind of just a fact sheet. And here, I'll pass them down. I will change the colors on this too, as well as the centering it, but just for, no wait, here's one more. Blow this up on like a foam core board, have it on an easel, and it just gives little facts and figures about homelessness. And then have brochures from the CDA, from Launch, from the Random Acts of Kindness, if we can get, if they have a brochure, any other agencies that service homelessness and affordable housing needs. This information was taken from a study that was done by the Wilder Foundation in 2015. They do it every 3 years, so in October of this year, they will be doing it again. They actually go out and count people. And then Out of Reach, their report just recently came out, and they have a thing by state, and so it tells how much you need to earn per hour in order to be able to rent a 2-bedroom apartment at 30% of your take-home pay. And so it's quite high, it's way above the average. Anyway, if, I suspect depending on how big we make it, it'll be under $100 to get it on a board.
And
I just wonder, given the presentation tonight, if we might work with CDA to make this a Carver County piece, and to make sure that all the statistics are correct as related to Carver, because I think we heard that there's at least one homeless shelter for specific use. So I think it would be great if we worked with them to have something more targeted, because I think that helps with the sort of the mission to engage people about what's going on here, not just sort of, because if somebody sees this, my concern is they're gonna think, oh, this is all Minneapolis and St. Paul. And it'd be great if we had some.
Well,
statistics
it's
that really-
Minnesota. It's based in Minnesota.
Right, I'm just
some of it, yeah, there are.
going along with sort of what the
a few specific.
misconceptions are about what homelessness looks like and where people experience it. I think it would be great if we could kind of localize it some more. And it sounds like they have some really good stats ready.
And the fact that they said homelessness in Chaska looks very different than in Minneapolis.
Right.
And so if we could localize it more so that in our neighborhood, this is what families are facing right now, that might be really impactful.
I can see if I can meet with them and.
They may even have some stuff they could just email. I mean, I'm just guessing.
There might be
probably.
something in what they've already
Right,
sent
maybe
out
read
too,
through that.
but.
Barbara?
Whatever you do, I really suggest that the first line should be the second one from the bottom, 139 people. Because we're talking to the Carver and Scott people mostly, and I think that should be the top line. It's that very eye-catchy.
Yes.
Would you have to redo every whole thing?
Oh, it's not a big deal to change this around.
Madam Chair, one of the things that the CDA handed out tonight is, and I think it's so significant, and when I first saw this, I couldn't believe it. It's on the back page of this document that they handed out, and it shows that somebody who works as a cashier in Carver County that earns $20,177, unfortunately, cannot afford to live here. So then you say, but wait a minute, what about registered nurses? That's a more advanced, although I would say cashiering could be just as challenging. 78,392 average earnings. But what do you need to have in order to rent or to live here in Carver County? And I just think, based on Commissioner Hage's recommendation, I really like tailoring this for Chaska, and certainly because you know that we're going to get others from Carver County. We're focused on Carver County as opposed to a broader picture. And that's not to say that this information isn't correct. It's just to say that we're focusing on an issue that's really important to Carver County.
Okay.
So after you have a chance to read through that stuff that they brought today from the CDA, and we have her card, so
I do.
if we do have questions, then we could reach out and find out more.
Yeah, I think the other reason why Commissioner Hage's recommendation is a good one for Commissioner Dunbar to meet with the CDA is if they're going to have a booth as well.
Right.
We want to support, but we don't want to be exact and have the exact same information. So how do we, make sure that we understand what they're going to have so that we can have something that's impactful and supplementary or complementary to what they're doing. I do like the fact that what they show are graphs, because graphs jump out at you very easily. They make a bigger impact. So maybe there's a way that they're focusing on a holistic view, and maybe we're targeting on something more specific, and maybe they can give us a recommendation on what, what they think that should be. But I do think the local view is the right one.
I'll go back to the drawing board.
Well, it's a great start, and you're moving in the right direction. So I think that you'll be able to do it with the information they have, and the stuff you have here is, it should be a powerful thing for the people in our community to learn about, you know, what some people are dealing with here.
Absolutely.
I'm blanking right now. What is the date of the River City Days?
27th through 29th of
27th
July.
through the 29th. Okay, and so we will have our next Human Rights Commission meeting.
A couple days before.
Yep.
The day
Or
before.
the day before,
it
yeah.
starts. And so it seems like there's a lot of, you know, work to be done, I guess, to get some of these handouts ready. I kind of wonder if, and I heard your comment, Commissioner Leggett, that we don't want to duplicate the CDA, we don't want to duplicate other folks, but is there a way that maybe we try to use things that already exist, rather
for
than
sure.
creating things from scratch? Just given, you know, there's a lot of people who work on housing and homelessness topics, they're experts in the areas, they're creating, you know, good handouts that provide useful information. We may not need to reinvent the wheel on those things. It might be more about how can we procure the information that makes sense for the topic that we're trying to highlight at the River City Days booth.
Yep.
That might be a way to make it more achievable for us to have information that is useful to people.
Yep. That's actually kind of what I was getting at.
Okay.
If you meet with them, they may show you, here's what our booth we plan on doing. Here's some things we couldn't do, or here's what we'd like you to zero in more on, and we've got the information for you to just leverage and just use, versus us
Well, I
creating
mean,
something.
we can give out these,
Mhm.
so we could have this at our booth,
If
which
they
has
aren't
the
doing it at
information.
theirs, because we don't want to double up.
Right, right,
with-
but
yeah.
I mean, we don't have to have a board, we can just have the literature at our,
Yes, or we could have the literature, and maybe they have one of these charts that we think is most impactful, like this, the one that Commissioner Carlson talked about. They may already have this on a board. Maybe they showed it at one of their presentations, but weren't planning on showing it at River City Days. Maybe we show that one. And that's,
Okay.
again, it's kind of complementary. They've got all the information, and we're targeting in to really make an impact on one of these that we think is important.
okay?
Commissioner Dunbar, if you'd like, I could join you in that meeting, or I could try and work with the CDA and pull some stuff together, and then work with you to make sure that we've got it, you know, lined up for River City Days.
And Commissioner Dunbar, I'm happy to help you.
Okay. We'll get her done.
Yeah.
You won't have to do it all alone for square one.
I have one more question about, do we have contact information? Like if someone wants to contact us, like what do they, is there a phone number?
That was a
an
question I
email,
had
or-
on this next flyer that I was gonna talk about.
Okay,
Do you feel like you have a plan, so we can?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
I think we should probably move on. We're not as quick as last month when we met. Next, I would like to talk about one of the flyers that we found in the archives of the basement. Where, there's this small flyer, little rack card, that just talks about know your human rights in Chaska. Nate, could you put it on there's a sheet that's similar, oh, never mind.
Is it up there already?
Yeah, it's up there, it just needs to be adjusted. Thank you.
And it's this flyer that we
Yep.
have in our packet.
Yep, that was just kind of a working draft that I put together, but it would end up looking something similar to this for a handout.
Okay,
There's a couple questions we had about it, and then a possible change to the back of it, which would be the furthest on the right on your sheet. But I highlighted the things that we had questions about. This flyer says the contact number for the Human Rights Commission is at extension 7103. We called it, and it is a voicemail box, and we're not sure whose voicemail box it is.
It wasn't
And so we
identified.
don't know if this is a current number, or if there's a better number to put.
My recommendation would be to just remove the extension.
And just have
and
it go to
direct
the city
general line.
offices?
Yeah,
Okay.
and if someone's calling for the Human Rights Commission, the front desk staff would know to route it to my office, so I think that would probably be a more efficient way to do
Okay.
it.
Otherwise, the poor person at that extension, right?
Right.
The other thing highlighted on that front part is that we thought there should maybe be a web address that people can go to. The bottom one that's at chaskamn.com, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's a long one, but it says Human Rights Commission, and that's the actual web address if you want to go to the web page. We also tried to do a bit.ly to shorten it. However, it says nothing about Human Rights Commission on there, which could be confusing to some people. So we're wondering if either or would be better.
Yeah, just from a city communications practices standpoint, I would recommend that we go with the Chaska longer address that provides some legitimacy, knowing that it is affiliated with the Chaska, City of Chaska website.
Okay.
And then folks also know that it is the Human Rights Commission by putting that in. I think maybe the challenge with the shorter one, although it may be a little less to type, is that it's not clear what that's affiliated with.
And I think it's important that if we do the city one, we do the entire thing where it goes straight to the Human Rights Commission page. It's a little bit tricky to find the Human Rights Commission if you just go to the main city page. So I think if people want to find things out, let's send them right to where they want to go. Okay, those are just things to clarify. And then on the back page, there were a couple of items that were listed, which are grayed out in that middle panel, that we did not feel like they were necessarily things that the current Human Rights Commission is necessarily doing or expected to do. I'm not sure when this came from. We found it with just all the other Human Rights Commission stuff. So I don't know what projects they were working on at the time. But we changed those two items to just say that we would partner with other agencies and businesses to develop and promote events which celebrate the diversity in our community. And we were wondering if anyone had objection to changing those two items to a shorter, kind of broader statement.
I was waiting for Commissioner Colhap to read it, because she would be the longest-serving person, and she was here when the commission started, so she would probably have a perspective on why that language was there.
I think that we copied it, maybe from the State Department. So I agree with you, Madam Chairman, that it's unnecessary.
Okay.
I certainly do.
I think we're still saying
Yes.
sort of the same thing.
Right.
We're just not necessarily offering certain services that at least most of us newer folks on this commission have been trained in or know much about yet. So I think I'd feel more comfortable saying that I'd be happy to partner with other agencies than I would to say, I can fix things for you, you know, without knowing exactly what I can do. So I will go ahead and make some changes to this, and I can send it to Nate. He said we can get it printed through the city probably. It shouldn't really be a big cost. You can do 3 on a page, front and back, and then just slice them. I think if we had, I don't know, 150 or something, you know, so 50 pages front and back is what we would need,
Yep.
just
And you were
as,
saying you wanted a yellow card stock.
well, that's what it is on right now, and I think that really stands out.
Okay.
Like what Donzel was saying about adding color to the booth and, you know,
And it goes
getting
with our
people's
green and
interest.
yellow colors.
Yeah.
Yep, no problem. I'll just make a note of that.
Okay. Thank you. Quickly, I'm gonna go through the next item on the agenda if everyone is ready to move on. Okay. Next item is about Multicultural Day. And I just wanted to let you know, we've been asked by the River City Days Committee and Tim Siebeneller if the Human Rights Commission would like to partner with them in supporting Multicultural Day, which is Sunday, the 29th, is the third day of River City Days.
Is this, I'm sorry, is this different than,
There was some different communications going on. I spoke to Tim recently,
Okay.
and this
So
is
it
what
is
he
happening.
asked.
okay,
He said that the good news right now is that they already have their performances in their budget for River City Days, so they would not be looking for a financial contribution from us, which is great. They have the taiko drums already confirmed, and they also have not a quite confirmation, but they're planning to have Mexico Lindo, their dancers, and they would perform after that. And they think they're just probably gonna stick to 2 performances this year. Sunday afternoons, typically people want to go home after a while, get ready for the week, and so they don't want to try to cram too much in and then have people leave when they have performers still there. So what Tim suggested is that someone from the HRC could do introductions for the performers, and also they could do a little commercial about the Chaska Human Rights Commission. So it would just be a quick little snippet about what we do, or, you know, a little of our history. The reason we feel it's important to partner with Multicultural Day, things like that.
That's great.
And he also suggested swapping advertising. So River City Days would talk about the partnership with the Human Rights Commission. In return, then the Human Rights Commission could advertise Multicultural Day on the Human Rights Commission website, on the city Facebook page, you know, that we're partnering with them. So it would be a lot of just collaborating with things without spending any money. But it would be something I think would be great for us to support.
Sounds like a great partnership.
Yes, it does.
I'm glad they're doing it.
Me too.
It's a big difference from what we originally heard, so that's great.
Okay. It sounds like everyone is excited about it. I don't know if we need to vote on any of this, or if I should just tell him we're happy to
Yeah.
join in. And is there anyone that's dying to introduce performers and get up and talk in front of crowds?
I'd be happy to.
Sarah,
right,
wonderful. Thank you, Commissioner Carlson. You get a gold star for that. And we can talk with Tim. We have some time to figure out what.
What it is.
Yeah, what we need to talk about and things.
It's great.
Thank you.
Really gonna be wonderful.
And then the final thing about River City Days is I printed up a sign-up sheet for volunteering. We did 3-hour shifts. We're hoping that 2 people would be at the booth at a time or more. If you just want to come hang out all weekend, you're welcome to. But there's 2 people at each shift, and the shifts sort of overlap. so that if someone needs to come and go, they can. But I'm gonna pass this around. If you don't know yet what would be a good time for you, I can also send out an email that has the times on it.
I'm just gonna volunteer. I can set up like a Google Doc that updates so that we can go in, because I know I don't know my availability, and then
Okay.
we can go in real time. Everybody
Sure.
can see what everybody else signs up for. As long as we all make the commitment to actually sign up for something, I'm happy to do that. It'll take me 5 minutes.
And with the amount of shifts and the amount of days in River City days, it would be best if every person on this commission could commit to 2 shifts. They could be Friday and Sunday, they could be one, all on Saturday, whatever works, but ideally that would split it up perfectly. If you can't make it, there are things that happen, but that's what we're hoping for. So, I can pass it so you can look at what the times are, but we'll have Kaylee send out an
Yeah.
email
Do that tomorrow.
that we can sign up.
That sounds good.
So
Barbara, do you want to
don't
look
want
at?
us to sign now?
If you
Well,
know for sure, go ahead and I'll just automatically put it in. And then when I send it out, it will be listed. That requires a negotiation, but it's not a big mistake.
Madam Chair, I'm more than happy to commit to a Sunday, but I have long-standing commitments for River City Days on Friday and Saturday.
right. If you get a
So I
break, you
apologize to
can
my fellow
stop by.
commissioners.
No, it's fine.
I'll be in the park, and if you need me, you can just come down the sidewalk, but I'm at another booth.
One thing Tim told me is that he's hoping to kind of mix up the booths this year so that, like, the organizations are mixed in with, like, the vendors. So it will not be all the commissions and city things all together. So people that maybe didn't used to come to our area will walk by and vice versa. They might not shop, but now they're gonna see there's a booth near us that they see something they like. So I think that'll be an interesting new thing to see how that brings people in.
Do we know, Nate, if there have been any applicants for the open alternate seat that may be confirmed before River City Days that could also sign up? It'd be a good opportunity for them to get involved.
Yeah, I think we have received an applicant, now that you're saying that. I don't recall her name off the top of my head.
Okay.
But we were working on when she'd be able to come, because the next step would be for her to come, just like you all have done, and do an interview with the council, and the council's going to make that appointment following the interview. So it's going to depend on the timing of that.
Okay.
If she's able to come to the next council meeting, which would be July 16th, then that would work pretty well.
It would be good if we could get that position filled, because, I'm certainly gonna sign up for 2, but it'll be tight during that time frame as well, because I have some other commitments. So we can get some other folks, that would be great, if we can get that one other alternate, knowing that Sarah
If
can
there
make
is
it
a new
Sunday.
person, we will have to let them know that we promise we'll put them with someone who's been here before. So we'll say, here, sit at the booth. I've been here for 3 days. Okay. Let's move on to the MLK breakfast quickly. Nate, could you switch the form to the other one? Jeff Philippek sent out a flyer recently. I think he only sent it out to some of us because he only has commission members' emails from last year. So I printed this out for all of you. It's just kind of a working agenda of what the MLK breakfast would look like. Jeff is the president of the Southwest Metro Chamber, and that's who we worked on the MLK breakfast with last year and plan to do that again. And this was roughly what our agenda was last year, but he's put in some things that will be, you know, new for this year, left some blanks because we have lots of questions, but it's not too early to start planning some of this stuff. One thing he asked about is if we've thought of any keynote speakers that we would like to reach out to. He knows that we're looking at affordable housing and homelessness as a theme for the commission. And he asked, are we looking for a speaker that is local, or is it maybe a higher recognition with them, where it would require a stipend, that we could offer something to the speaker? So I have no idea yet, but I said I would ask if people have given that any thought.
I mean, I did. Kaylee had mentioned last time about Commissioner Kevin Lindsay. I had lunch with him a couple weeks ago, and he indicated he's got, normally has a conflict for this particular time, the breakfast time. So that probably wouldn't work. But he was excited, and he would have done it if it wouldn't have been for the conflict. Because again, there is a breakfast in downtown Minneapolis that General Mills sponsors, and a lot of the dignitaries are going to be there.
Right.
So I think it'll probably be tough to get a higher name speaker because of the time and the day.
Okay.
But there's still a lot of other folks available, especially on this topic. I wonder if the CDA folks would have a perspective.
That's an idea.
I wonder if, you know, we had been part of this event where we did the racial and social equity discussion, and we had folks come who have experienced some of these issues before. I mean, I wonder if there's someone that the CDA's come across that would be willing to tell their story, like the powerful story she told on behalf of someone else. That would be really, you know, moving. Someone who's actually experienced and gone through the process and can articulate their own story to inspire folks. So that might be a thought as well.
The
Maybe-
Deputy Commissioner of the Human Rights Commission, Ship Chandler, Rosette Chandler, she might be, she certainly seemed very effective when we met her the other day, and certainly had a lot of enthusiasm about human rights and civil rights. So that might be, if we wanted to go a Human Rights Commission,
From the State Department.
from the State Department.
So I guess one of my questions is, are we looking for a policy speaker? Or are we looking for an inspirational speaker? I mean, those are two very different things. You know, like Minnesota Housing has some really great people, but they're gonna speak more to, I don't know that I would say that anybody there is super like Kevin Lindsay makes you wanna get up and like, go do something.
Right.
And so I think that also impacts in terms of, like, I think there are people within the state that would be available, but I think knowing sort of what the angle is, my guess is probably we want something more towards the inspirational, but.
I think I would agree with that, and I mean, we're inviting members of the community, and they're not necessarily interested in the policy, and to come have breakfast and hear, you know, uplifting stories, and I mean, personal stories from people, I think would be a great thing. I think facts and figures
I do too.
are probably not as effective.
Madam Chairman, I would like to suggest that we ask the two speakers we had today if they have somebody who would be fluent enough and be able to stand before a crowd.
And it'd be good if they had some people to come, and if they did give a little bit of background
Right.
with some statistics, but not the whole time
No.
talking. and then have some personal stories if people are willing to share. That could be a really great.
So the commission would consider like a panel?
Yeah, they would probably be more comfortable if they had two other people sitting by them who would also tell a story.
Right. And if they each just gave a little anecdote, if that's what they were comfortable with. You think differently, Kaylee?
No, I mean, I think that it would have to be structured and moderated really well to make them comfortable. I mean, I think that's gonna be one of the challenges there. I mean, I think if you had somebody who's willing to give a testimonial, but that's a big ask too.
Yes.
Do we want, if there's somebody that wants to follow up with CDA folks, I mean, there's a couple folks at Minnesota Housing that I think I'd like to just reach out to. And maybe next month we come back with some actual firm ideas.
Sure.
Some names and that kind of thing to see, because I think we're still kind of talking in circles. And I think-
Brainstorming.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I actually think I can think of a couple people that might be good and passionate. And if we have some actual concrete ideas, it might be easier for us to react to. And I think that gives CDA the chance to say, yeah, there's, somebody would be great.
Yeah, the other person, I wonder, so if someone could take the CDA, I mean, I could ask Corey from Launch if there are any, again, success stories, someone that would be willing and capable of coming back and telling a story. Again, I think it's powerful with CDA or someone that's going through Launch because they've lived in this community, and that's what
I
people,
think having
they're invisible.
a
People
local
don't think this is
story
here.
would be great to have at a local breakfast. And I know that there's some great stories that come out of Launch, so that could be a great thing to have.
So I'll
Again, if
volunteer
they're
to-
comfortable sharing.
Right.
So,
I'm assuming that anybody would have to go through them, so like anybody we would recommend moving forward would go through Southwest Chamber to be the final sign off on that, or how does this, I just don't know what the.
It's a good question. Last year,
Jeff
Jeff
was
was well placed on, this and being the president. They're a co-sponsor, or a partner in the event. I think we would at least want to let Jeff know the ideas and maybe what our recommendation is and allow them an opportunity to weigh in on it. I think that would probably be a good approach.
So maybe after July, forward some more concrete ideas.
sure. And that's when I had emailed him, I said that I would bring this to the meeting that we have tonight, discuss it a little bit, and then get back to him about what we discussed.
Have you started working on your closing remarks yet?
No, I saw that part and I panicked a little, actually.
So are we following up to come prepared next time with some ideas?
Yeah.
Or we want to talk to Jeff first that we have some, we want to do that? That's kind of what I'm just
No,
trying to
I
make sure.
think it would be fine enough to come with some ideas at the next meeting. And I think as long as we share, what our thoughts are with Jeff, I would be surprised if there's
Okay.
going to be much issue there. But I think it would be nice to, allow him that opportunity.
Okay. So I'll commit to following up with Launch, with Corey, if he's got some ideas for speakers, if someone else can follow up with CDA.
I'll commit to following up with the CDA.
Thanks.
The only other thing that he asked about on the flyer is, last year at the end of the breakfast, we all sang Amazing Grace together. And he was wondering if maybe Let There Be Peace on Earth would be a nice change, or if people are really married to Amazing Grace. I don't think we have to make that decision, but he just said it was a thought that he was wondering if people have thoughts about a different song that might be appropriate.
I guess my thought with Amazing Grace is it actually has, it's a spiritual, it's connected with sort of the African American community. And I think that keeping something that maintains that tie, that's a very important song. And I don't know that Let There Be Peace on Earth has that same connection.
I agree with Commissioner Haga
Okay.
on this one. I do. I think Amazing Grace, it's a spiritual song. It's got a tie, and it's a direct tie to Dr. King. And I think people would associate it more with the type of work we're trying to do, the way I look at it.
Okay. I will let him know those remarks on the feedback there. We still need to think about nominees for Human Rights Award. If anyone is coming up with any, please feel free to email them to us as you come up with them, and we'll just kind of keep a running list, and then closer to the time, we'll put out a call for if there's nominees from the community also.
We're gonna do a quick and dirty communications plan for that.
Yeah, and I spoke with our communications manager about that, and he's happy to sort of put together a timeline of maybe we're going to do some posts on social media and our website and try to bring some awareness to it that way. But he felt that one of the maybe a more successful way of raising awareness is for you all as commissioners and me as I'm interacting with folks, just to try to keep that as one of your talking points as you're meeting with people, to say, hey, I'm part of the Human Rights Commission, we give out this award, we're seeking nominations, and encourage people to do it that way on in those one-on-one communications. Another thing that he brought up too is that think about opportunities that events might provide that you're involved in, and so certainly the MLK event is going to be a good opportunity to highlight the winner and also promote that and maybe get some more visibility that way. But at the Human Rights Commission booth at River City Days, I think that's you should really have that as one of your handouts and a thing that you're talking about with folks. And try to solicit some nominations that way. And if there's other events that we end up getting involved in throughout the year, just kind of make that a standard thing that you're really trying to push on. So, we can supplement that with what we've got available at the city through our social media and communications outlets. But, his thought is you may have more impact and more effectiveness just through those one-on-one communications.
So was there a thought at the River City Days booth for us to not change the banner, but have something to draw people to nominate human rights, or I don't care what the name of the award is, but here's an opportunity to nominate right here at the booth versus just having the paper there and telling them when they come? Was there a thought to draw
Maybe
people
having
there?
like a poster of the previous
Yes.
winners of it.
Yes.
I was gonna say, can we take the plaque?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. You can certainly take the plaque. Yep.
That's a good idea.
Yes. And then, and then draw people's attention and nominate the next award winner or something like
Sure.
that.
It would be great just to sort of see a timeline from him, just so that those of us who have a social media presence can amplify the
Sure.
city message too. And
So
I know that,
important,
I see him at Nextdoor all the time. So I think that there are venues that he has that I think it would be great that we're using
Sure.
that we are also elevating the city profile too, to get some more folks that way. And if I know when to look, because algorithms being what they are, I may not see it.
Yep.
And I would certainly like to share stuff from the city as well.
Okay. We can do that.
Well, we decided not to place an ad, is that right? I thought we talked about potentially placing an ad.
I think we talked about potentially, but we're still a little far out, I think. If we plan on advertising at River City Days, I think that would be a great start. And if we get 100 nominees, we're gonna have our work cut out for us.
Yes.
So, then we wouldn't have to place an ad.
Yes.
And people can always go to the website to nominate also. The form is right on the Human Rights Commission website. So I think we should still hold off on deciding on the ad.
Good. So that's still an option.
Madam
Closer.
Chairman, are we going to have some papers saying, the criteria? to hand to you?
We can have the nomination forms
That's what I
and
mean.
description at the booth. Yep, we'll print out copies so people could fill it out there or
Yeah.
take it home with them if they want to. Or we can say it's also on the website if they'd rather fill it out there.
Great.
I love the idea of having the plaque there.
It's a great idea. It's awesome.
Do you have any updates about music?
Yep, we are locked in with Chaska One Jazz Ensemble. Chaska High School Choir has elected not to participate this year.
Okay. I know one thing that Jeff had asked about, was it gonna be background music or like more of a performance?
The jazz ensemble has committed to performance, not to background
Okay.
music.
Okay,
And that has been communicated to Jeff.
okay. Let's move on, let's get going. Judy, Sarah, and I were at the State Human Rights Commission Summit on Tuesday. And I was wondering if you ladies would like to just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I thought it was a worthwhile day to spend there. Probably most interesting to me was the discussions that we had at the end with the other human rights commissions that were kind of, had the same feelings about their role in their respective cities as we do, as far as defining what it is that we really can do and can't do, and that was shared by a lot of other organizations. There was somebody that did the presentation on the census, which was really interesting. I thought, well, and he was a very good presenter, and about how important that census is, and how each response is worth $1,537, I think it was, to your community through federal dollars, or to our state through federal dollars, and even more when you count through per year, even more when you get state funding and county funding could be an even greater. So it's really important that everybody answers their census, the numbers, catch as many people as you can, because that's a per year figure for 10 years, because the census is only done every 10 years. And then he talked about how the human rights commissions could be influential in helping, get people to fill out their census by way of advertising or having community events that, have them available, that they can sign up. You could sign up on you could fill out your census online or on form. What else was there?
He talked about some of the barriers to getting people to fill out their census, whether it is a citizenship status or there's maybe legal reasons that people don't want their information out there. There's people who believe that you have to give your social security number, which is not true. There should never be like banking information or anything on there. And so he talked about some of the myths that surround it, and he also talked about the confidentiality of it. A census form is confidential, except for the Census Bureau, for 72 years. So you can go and look up your grandparents and great-grandparents and find them on the census. but you can't look at your parents or your immediate family right now, because that is still in confidentiality for, 65 more years or whatever it is. So, and he talked about offices where there were, law enforcement agencies coming in and saying, give us this information, and they refused because it's so important the country knows who's here and how to allocate funds and things throughout the country, but they don't want to give out that information. So they really protect it fiercely, and it was very interesting to listen to him talk about that.
Yeah, and they don't share with any other agencies like ICE or FBI or anything. So a lot of reasons people don't want to film us is they're worried about their status as a citizen, and they aren't identified either on the forms. You're identified by address, not by name on your form.
Thank you.
I guess I would just add that there was a cross-section of topics that you could learn from. Sexual harassment, rebuilding a community, ban the box, transgender, refugees in Minnesota, the connection between work, construction companies that were present to human rights commissions. I certainly think it was worth the $25. So I'm glad that we had a chance to be present.
My only suggestion, if they did it again, would be to allow a little more time. It was like we just getting into a topic and it time's up, and so there wasn't enough time for complete presentations.
Yeah, they crammed several different workshops into a 7-hour day,
Yeah.
and part of that was lunch, which was great, but it would be great to have a little bit more time with the speakers and have some questions and stuff.
And I was supposed to go, but I had a work conflict that day that came up, so I did not go. So I don't know if I need to reimburse the commission the registration fee, because I certainly could do that, but it was an unforeseen work commitment that came up, unfortunately. But it sounds like it was a great day.
Yeah.
Sorry I missed it.
We missed you. The next item on the agenda is that we had talked about Veterans Court. Barbara had brought that up at a previous meeting. And I was just wondering if we think, we had talked about we'd like to invite David Hunt to come and speak to the group. I was wondering if July or August seems like a realistic time to invite him.
He said he could come the last Thursday in September.
Oh, so July and August is a no.
I thought we were busy.
Okay.
Yeah. So September, is it September 26th, last Thursday, whatever it is.
Whatever the last Thursday is in September.
And he'll come. And should he limit himself to 15 minutes?
About 10 or 15 minutes, and then a little time for Q&A is usually what we
I
ask.
told him that.
Okay. Does that sound good, September? Okay. Do you want to contact him and say that we would love to have him then?
Yes.
Okay, great, at 6:30, just, at the
Okay,
beginning part of the
yeah.
meeting would be great. Does anyone have any new business?
Madam Chair, I do.
Okay,
I'm hoping that Nate can help us with this issue. At the Human Rights Commission meeting, many of the other Human Rights Commission members talked about violation of public law, public meeting laws. And that's something that if you can give us some guidance on, I think that would be quite helpful going forward. I don't know when I spoke with the representative from the city of Richfield, he indicated that their city attorney came and talked to their Human Rights Commission about it.
Yep.
And that's something that I don't know if in previous commission meetings you've had a discussion about, or if that's a pertinent topic that we need to be aware of. But I thought perhaps you could be, to help facilitate that information to us.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question, and it is a pertinent question. This is a public appointed body, and so the open meeting laws do apply. And so I think my thought would be bringing in the city attorney, or maybe I could look at the Minnesota League of Minnesota. The League of Minnesota Cities has a lot of resources on that topic.
Yes.
So I can kind of explore some options and figure out what would be best to get you some training on that, and maybe prepare for whether it be July or August to provide something that's prepared and gives you some of that guidance that you.
I don't know, does our city attorney provide that training to other commissions for the city of Chaska? And if so, I mean, we could be one of X amount of commissions? Or, I don't know if they do that or not.
Sure, yeah, it could be a joint work session type topic to talk about. We haven't done that recently, so there has been a lot of change.
One thing he had talked about there was that every year when they get new commissioners, they have all the new commissioners and the current ones that are remaining go to a training at the beginning of the year where they learn about, well, they don't use Robert's Rules of Orders, they use Harley's Rules of Engagement or something it's called. And then they learn about things like, the expectations of being a commissioner and open meeting laws. When they were talking about that, it really made us question, we're not sure what the rules are for us here. Several people on this commission are involved in several activities throughout the community that we run into each other, and we want to make sure that we're following what we're supposed to be doing. And so we just thought it would be helpful to know what the expectations are.
Yeah, no, I think I'm glad you're bringing that up. Those are really good points. And so, yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that legwork and figure out, what might be the best approach to doing it. It might be a presentation in this group, or maybe like you're suggesting, there's an opportunity to bring folks together in some way. But I'll explore those options and figure something out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other new business? Okay, I apologize for the length of the meeting tonight. We got through a lot of stuff. And our next meeting will be Thursday, July 26th at 6:30, right before River City Days. So we'll see you all then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Need a motion to.
Oh, we need a motion to adjourn. Forget this.
I'll make a motion to adjourn our meeting.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.